it reminds me of that moment when I was told I was applying for, what major would I pick? And they told me that you have no future in politics in Saudi. Just pick social enterprise. You can still do good. But there's a reason why you have this calling and desire, because as soon as I finished my master's, they were looking for youth to represent the kingdom, and who actually studied that. They majored in that. So really, don't pick your choices today based on just what opportunities are available in front of you today, but there's actually time until you can, for things to change, predict. There's ways to look forward. There's every single person can contribute and look forward in a specific way.
This is the 966.
Our guest today is the brilliant Raghad Fathaddin. Raghad is a communications analyst for PepsiCo based in Riyadh, an entrepreneur and founder of Sangha, Estidama Hub. The list goes on. Raghad is a Y20 delegate, and we know she's been working hard on that. She's also a WIN fellow and recently spoke this week on a KAUST plus SYS panel. Raghad, thank you so much for joining us today. It's going to be great.
Thank you. I'm very excited, honestly. I've been waiting to be here.
And your patience. Yes, you have been patient. This is, we're so excited to have you too. I have to tell a story how we met, right? Met virtually, since everything's virtually. So the MISC Foundation did an online survey asking people to share their favorite podcast. And you, Raghad, responded that yours was the 966, which was out of nowhere. And it was because it was relatively early. I mean, we're just 6 months into this.
Wow.
Needless to say, I saw that. I knew I had to meet you in person. And then when that connection was made, we learned about all these fascinating things you're doing. So much so that when we're looking at today's episode, it's really kind of hard to know where to begin.
Yeah.
So let's begin today with the Y20. And if I may, for our listeners and our viewers, gives a little background on this. I think it's worthwhile because it's really an impressive enterprise, the G20 in general, but also all these engagement groups. But anyway, so this 2022 G20 Summit is upcoming in Indonesia this November. So again, recap for our listeners, the G20 is 19 countries plus the EU. It comprises most of the world's largest economies, accounts for around 90% of gross world product, 75 to 80% of international trade, and 2/3 of the global population. So this is a significant gathering, annual gathering. What a lot of people don't know is part of the G20 process includes engagement groups, 8 engagement groups, which are independent from governments and comprised of various stakeholders throughout the international community. And these engagement groups include the B20 for the business community, the C20, civil society, L20, labor unions, S20, scientists, T20, think tanks, U20 for urban cities, W20 for women, and Y20 for youth. So these engagement groups meet throughout the year, and they actually have their quote unquote summits in the run up to the G20 summit in November. And in these summits, they report out their findings and recommendations. And it's quite a detailed process, quite a huge commitment in terms of if you're a delegate. So Raghad, you are now a Y20 Saudi delegate, and you've been working very hard with your global counterparts on this engagement group. And just last week, you had your final planning and prep meeting for the Y20 Summit next month in Indonesia. Again, it's an important distinction. The G20 Summit is in November, but these engagement groups bring out their finding, and it's a big deal in the run up to that. So your Y20 is next week in July. We would love to hear about this process and your involvement and the issues that the Y20 is focused on for this G20 summit in Indonesia.
All right. You've explained it very well as a concept, but more specifically on the Y20. So how did I get into the Y20? Just to kind of give you a background information or an overview on the situation here in Saudi. As you know, with Saudi Vision 2030, and as the youth make 67% of the population, a lot of the efforts are put into the youth for them to be an active agent for change. So one of the programs Miss Global created was called Ignited Voices. This program trains individuals, participants, the youth of Saudi, to how to negotiate, write policies, communication, understanding your identity and your personality as well. So it's really an in-depth kind of process, building a global citizen and a leader.
I have a question. I raise my hand.
Yeah.
For those listening, who is organizing and putting on this program?
So MISC Foundation.
MISC Foundation. All right.
Yeah. So MISC Foundation, there's also something called MISC Global. So anything that is from local to the world, MISC Global kind of leads on that. So that's why this program is under MISC Global. It's called Ignited Voices. So I participated in this program last year after a few weeks of almost 2 months of the program. You pitch a presentation, an idea, and then they select 10, winners, but I'm not sure if I should say that. And then they create this database of well-trained Saudi individuals who are passionate in different fields. So every time there is a summit globally or even locally, you would have representatives. So they're already experts, that's what they're passionate about, and they would like to kind of pursue this path. So this kind of program connects you to the global platforms and representing the youth of Saudi. So this year you have the Y20. So they reverted back to these 10 participants and they did interviews and they selected 4 based on the priority areas the Indonesian presidency selected for this year. So the theme is recovering together, recovering stronger. And there's different tracks for the Y20 or the G20. You have the youth employment, digital transformation, inclusion, and my track, which is Sustainable Livable Planet track. And what I love about this year is when we're looking at sustainability, the track itself, the wording is much more holistic and broad, and not just looking at sustainability as an environmental crisis or issue, not just like climate change, but it's much more beyond that. So the conversation is getting wider and including other elements. So how can we come together as the youth and think of policies that would lead us to achieve a more sustainable and a livable planet? So that's what I've been working on. We had 4 on-record sessions, and yeah.
So 4 on the record sessions, and do you come in with the framework, or do you create a framework as a part of these discussions that you're having with your counterparts?
Yeah, so the first proposal, each delegate for each track from each delegation of the G20 countries would write their own proposal, and you would submit it. They would put all the proposals together in a document, and then we have an on-record session where we start dividing ourselves into working groups. So now the working groups you have in terms of financial investment, green investment, and green investment, global commons, we have circular economy, we're looking into so many others as well. But you get the idea. So
sorry to help me understand the mechanism, but I think it's interesting. So when you first get together on a Y20 or any engagement group, I presume it's sort of the same format for all engagement groups.
Yeah.
But so you have 20 representatives.
Yes, in each track.
Each team, right? And they each propose a topic or an issue that they want to see as a major theme. Is that correct?
So it's not a topic as much as a policy proposal.
All right.
So,
and then there's a choice. Then there's sort of a vote about which ones that are going to be selected and which ones move forward.
yeah, so they put all the proposals, everything they've received into a document, and then we have a word limit at the end that we need to reach, which is 100 words per working group. So that's really, a challenge. How can we come together and really set our priorities under each working group? So there's, we had 3 on-record sessions where we had to negotiate and reach consensus on the proposals, and we're still working on it. By the end of this month, we should, have reached at least consensus on, I would say, 80% of the proposed proposals. However, by July, we're meeting in Indonesia in person, and we're going to continue the process and finalize it. So it's really been a process of coming together off record as Y20 delegate, as the youth, and explain to each other why this policy should be prioritized. Why should we remove this? How can we make it more concise? How can we still make sure that the message is delivered? And we're really trying to think together on how we phrase things, how we structure the document, and make the most out of, you know, the opportunity, but also the limitations that comes with it in terms of word limits, etc. It's been a really eye-opening process. I did not expect. I came into the Y20, yes, to kind of contribute to policy, but it was also an opportunity for me to see how do the future leaders of the world see themselves as leaders in the future. So as we come together, I was so curious to see how are we going to interact with one another. What level of consciousness do we have, and awareness and knowledge and skill set, and what values do we agree upon, because this really sets the ground, and there's a lot of harmony. So I really enjoyed seeing the level of consensus between us, and it wasn't based on where we come from as much as there's a common vision, almost like sustainability, the SDGs. Let's just work on achieving that. And you feel the responsibility they take in the process. Like, we have this opportunity, let's make the most out of it. And it's just so wonderful to witness that and see it unfold. So
a number of questions. I want to get back to that SDG that you were just talking about. I do want to, I don't know if we mentioned this before, but the very first interview that the 966 did was with Abdullah Hassan, who was the sous Sherpa of and also director of policy for the G20 Summit in Riyadh in December 2020, I believe. And one of the things that we talked about, and one of the reasons we wanted to talk with Abdullah was because the G20 Summit physically in and of itself, obviously in 2020 it was virtual, but the actual execution of it is one thing. The legacy is another.
Yeah.
And this is, here we are, close to 2 years later. And you and your many other Saudis, young Saudis, are just immersed in this process, learning skills that you wouldn't learn anywhere else. And I just want to take a moment to recognize that this legacy continues and will grow. Another question about mechanism. So when you're on the sustainable and livable planet track, that's you, Raghad. You have 4 other Saudi counterparts. Are they also on this, or do they go separate ways?
So
do they pick other tracks, for example?
Yeah, different tracks. So there's 4 tracks, there's 4 priorities. Each delegation has the opportunity to invite 4 delegates. So you have the employment track, you have the inclusion, and you have the digital transformation, as well as the sustainable livable planet track. So each delegation has 4 delegates representing each track. The process is very similar. We join each session together, and so we are informed on all the policies being recommended on all tracks as a Y20 delegate. But when you work with your track to kind of come up with the policies and finalize the communique.
So can you give us a sneak preview of the policies that we're going to see in July?
I can give you
announced in July.
Well, I can give you just a quick, what are we focusing on at the moment, not specifically what's been written.
Sure. I mean, this would be a major media scoop, and I understand that has to be, you have to be, cautious.
But at the same time, the process is very transparent. There isn't anything that we shouldn't or should share. It's the more you share, the better in a way, because it's all about getting the youth voices represented. So it's really just trying to understand, what do the youth of each delegation would like to see in the future and at this moment, for us to live in a sustainable, livable planet. So I see a lot of attraction towards sustainable production and consumption. So circular economy and the circular mindset is really gaining momentum at the moment, pushing for sustainable options to be default option for consumers. There's a lot of burden on consumers to act right. They want to, but sometimes there isn't access, or they can't afford it, or it's just not available. It's not convenient. So how can we reach a place where producers, from ideation, design, and implementation, they think with a circular mindset, they produce in a sustainable way. So us consumers, when we buy a product, we don't have to think about all the, the hassle that comes with it, and making sure that I am a responsible and sustainable being. So how can I make it easy? How can I make it the norm for consumption to be sustainable? Just as you pick anything, it is sustainable. How can we reach to that level of circularity, sustainability? This is something that we really want to see, because awareness, yeah.
Sorry. So we talk a lot about the circular carbon economy here, and that obviously is something that is a priority with Saudi Arabia, policy-wise. But we're talking about carbon emissions there. Yeah. When you're talking about the circular economy and sustainability, what exactly does that mean for my benefit?
Yeah, of course. So at the moment, the way we produce, or used to, I hope, is you would take resources, you would create a product. I would come buy the product, I'll use it, I don't want it anymore, I throw it into the landfill, it's waste. Circular economy says this shouldn't be the case, and we can actually benefit from all these wasted resources, not only for the planet, but also as producers and also as consumers. So for producers, let's say you want to produce something, what is the idea? You think of the idea, and then you say, okay, how am I going to produce this? What are the most sustainable ways? What is the life cycle of this product? And how can I guarantee that this life cycle is sustainable? So even once you produce it, the manufacturing process, how can you guarantee that it is sustainable? The amount of water you use, the amount of electricity, everything is processed and thought of. Until I come and buy this product, even if for instance, if it was a bottle of water, I used it, I've thrown the water bottle. Once you collect it, you're excited to collect it. You thought of this process because you understand that this is resource, and how can you take it and put it back? So by doing so, you reduce the amount of virgin plastic being used and resources and costs. So it's a circular, it's a holistic, circular process of production and consumption. Yeah.
So let me ask you something. In your opinion, what's the trigger for this? And I understand it's ongoing. So it's a lot of the trigger is education, understanding, and making this information available to people. But is the trigger the consumer? Is the trigger the manufacturer? Is the trigger regulatory bodies, governments that require this? In other words, as you know, obviously, a manufacturer of anything, those plastic bottles, there needs to be a revenue and profit involved. And part of, I think, what you're trying to do is reorient everything to understand that these resources can actually be economically viable.
Yeah. So I think once you talk about circular economy, you're not just targeting industrial or authoritative governance or just the general public. You cannot just communicate or ask one entity or one player to contribute or get this job done. We all have a role to play, right? So if you have, it's just how can we harmonize the effort? So let's say a producer wants to adopt a circular attitude towards their production, and consumers want sustainable products, but we don't have access to them, and producers have limitations. So how can this be attractive to them? Because sometimes you have to change, the whole operation system at times, and this requires resources and it takes a lot of investment.
Right.
How can government incentivize this step? Right. So we really need to create this ecosystem that is healthy and exciting for everyone to participate and take that risk, because once we take it and it is achieved, it is going to benefit everyone, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of the resources you're putting out today in different things is to mitigate the risk. So if we can create something that is efficient and scalable and sustainable, then the resources that you were wasting on mitigating the risk is no longer needed. Khalas, you've dealt
So let
with
me let me take a left turn here, because we're talking about the G20 Summit, as I mentioned, comprises 90% of the gross world product. So these are for lack of a better term, these are high performing, relatively rich countries. But let's talk about how is on all those fronts that you just mentioned, how is Saudi Arabia doing?
on circular economy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot of investment and attention towards circular economy from government, but also producers. So working at PepsiCo, I see the agenda. So you have the SDGs on a global level. We need to achieve sustainability. Saudi has this national framework to achieve that. And then, of course, as international companies functioning in Saudi, you would have your own framework as well. And you see a lot of companies taking the initiative because they understand that this is the future. If you really want to achieve so many of the SDGs, you'll need to take action. So you see them, sometimes going out of their way into collecting, making sure that they are participating in the collection process, which in reality, they don't really have to do that, right? But by doing so, you're supporting Saudi vision agenda as well, because you're bridging that gap, but you're starting something and you see the partners that are also aligned with you. So you attract them and you work together. So I love how things are working and happening here. There's a lot of advocacy. There's a lot of awareness raising at the moment. And there's also the understanding of the importance of changing mindset. So education for the youth, because you cannot change production and then the consumer still act the way they do, or they don't change their behavior, understand, we want them to be conscious consumers and conscious beings, understanding the impact of every single thing that they do in this life. There's impact. So how can we raise awareness in that regard? I think that's where we stand at the moment in terms of implementation on the ground. I wish I could help you here, but I don't have many examples, but right. I feel like more entities are forming to kind of push this agenda forward.
Well, Lucian, unless you have questions, that's a really good segue into PepsiCo, which I'm interested in talking with Raghad about. Did you want to add anything on the Y20?
No.
On PepsiCo, and I have to admit, I feel a little pride here. And I may be out of line here, but pride because it's a U.S. corporation, which actually seems to be quite dedicated to SDG issues and particularly women empowerment. But for our listeners, so Raghad is for PepsiCo, communication analyst, public policy, government affairs, and cooperation communication. Is that correct?
Corporate communication.
Corporate, I'm sorry. So let me do this again. I'm going to do it again, Lucian, so you can cut that out. Raghad is communication analyst, public policy, government affairs, and corporate communications with PepsiCo. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because as I said, I've been impressed with what PepsiCo seems to want to do in terms of the community. Yeah.
So fun fact, did you know that PepsiCo existed in Saudi for almost 60 years, if not more? It has been present in Saudi for 60 years. This is an international company that existed in Saudi. So it really grown with the culture, with, the whole social change, the Vision 2030. It's going, it's something that now we're looking at PepsiCo here in Saudi, and it's like someone with two passports, right? You're Saudi and you're American. And you're proud of both, but at this time we're living in, there is a merge. The American and the Saudi is in harmony and has like a shared vision when it comes to sustainability. So there's a lot of excitement there because there's harmony. So you're working on joint agendas everywhere to achieve a common objective or commitment you've made in the past, which are the SDGs.
That is a fun fact. Fun fact, when I first lived in Saudi in the 80s, I knew this because all you get was Pepsi, because there was a secondary boycott on Coke.
Wow.
And so there were no Cokes at the time.
Yeah.
And I think later the Oleon group brought in Coke, and Coke is doing well. But Pepsi, yes, Pepsi is a mainstay in Saudi Arabia for 60 years. The CEO, Mr. Williamson, is really seems to be the PepsiCo positive approach, sustainability and these things. I've also been really impressed with their women empowerment, women mentorship program. I guess is it called Tamakani?
So yes, we have the women empowerment platform called Tamakkani, which is to be capable of doing something, to be empowered. Yeah, Tamakkani. And Tamakkani has 3 pillars: amplifying voices, so offering a platform for women to voice their stories, their narratives, their challenges, the opportunities, their stories, and all of that. And there's the fostering entrepreneurship and the mentorship pillar. So we have so many different programs under each pillar with different partners, from Princess Noor University to the American Chamber, the Atlantic Council, Family Affair Council, and Nahda, and so many others. So there's a lot of focus when it comes to women empowerment in Saudi, because that's part of the sustainability agenda. And a lot of people don't understand how diverse sustainability is and the different elements that come to play. How can we create an environment, an ecosystem that each and every single human being that is participating is active and can benefit, receive, but also give? So we need to get everyone involved, and it's time to get everyone involved. So women empowerment is really needed in Saudi today, and it's happening so quickly because they were so ready. It was happening in the past, but now it's just coming to the surface, and the opportunities are there. So it's just like the women were ready. They were always ready. The country was always ready for that. The nation. So it's just happening so smoothly, and I'm not surprised that companies, part of their corporate social responsibility is to kind of participate in that, creating the change and fostering an environment that is creating a positive change.
We were talking before we started recording about Lucian's a surfer, and we were talking about giant waves off of Portugal, and it seems like a giant wave for Saudi Arabia in terms of women coming into the not only the workspace, but just throughout society. And as you say, it's been building for some time. It's been there, but now it's crashing, it feels like. What exactly are you doing with PepsiCo?
So I'm a communication analyst. I lead the women empowerment platform, Tamakkani, and support with the SDG or the PepsiCo positive agenda in terms of communication and impact. So that's my role there at the moment.
So you're right at the heart of all their SDG outreach.
Yeah, the PEP positive.
Yeah.
PepsiCo positive agenda. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's countrywide?
Yeah.
Interesting. So are you responsible? So you're based in the Eastern Province, right?
I'm in Riyadh. I'm based in Riyadh.
Oh, you're in Riyadh.
I'm not leading the sustainability agenda. I'm supporting with the communication of the sustainability agenda in Saudi. We have a full-on team that focuses on more the scientific part of sustainability, the partnerships that come with it. But my role is more on the raising awareness and advocacy and really amplifying the work that is being done today.
I want to get to your foundation. your Sangha Estidama Hub. But before that, we have you not only were, a winner, so as it were, selected, the United Voices, and then you moved on from there to be part of Y20. You also were selected to be part of this WIN Fellowship, which is
Yes.
and another connection. Amjad Ahmed, who was with the EmpowerME, which is Atlantic Council's initiative. They're the ones who put together this WIN Fellowship. Georgetown University, School of Business, U.S. Embassy, Riyadh, and two of the supporters are UPS and PepsiCo.
Yeah.
But this sounds like, so these are 30 women. Can you tell us about it? It sounds like a fascinating initiative.
Yeah, it's a fun story, honestly. So last year I was working on my startup I took all of my time, I put it into my startup. It was just starting. So that's all I was doing last year. And then at the end, I saw this program, the WIN Fellowship. So I applied to it because, sponsored by PepsiCo, it was having this, Georgetown into play and all the information and guidance you could receive from that. So I was really excited about it. So I applied, but then right after I got this call from PepsiCo, and that's how I got a job opportunity to work on PepsiCo. And to my surprise, I'll be in charge of all of the women empowerment program. So I'm kind of here working on, all the programs, managing them, but also I'm part of the WIN Fellowship program as a Saudi entrepreneur myself. So I'm quite lucky that I could still participate and go through the process, which is really great. It's a very unique program. There's a lot that you could receive from it. So you have courses to take you through how can you develop a sustainable, scalable business model, and you have mentors as well. So you pick 2 mentors of your choice from a list that they provide, and you have sessions with them once or twice per month. So it's really up to you what kind of knowledge, where's the gap in your journey, and how can you bridge it. So sometimes it's the courses, but I've been into so many accelerator programs in the past. So now what I'm benefiting the most out of this is the level of the mentors and mentorship that I could receive. So I have a mentor from the US who is a lecturer in Georgetown, a professor. And I also have someone who's here in Riyadh, more local in the market. And that's exactly what I wanted, because I do a lot of research. I want to lead with research with what I do and impact policies. But at the same time, I want to kind of make sure that Sangha is a product and a service that is positioned well in the market. So these 2 mentors are really helping me put that together. So I get lost in everything that I do, from PepsiCo to the Y20 to the Summit. But these are all different things that I'm collecting data, insight, resources, perspective. Where are we today? And then feed it into my startup and say, okay, today let me elevate you. You're here today. So I'm feeding into it. I've been away from the Saudi market for 8 years. I've been living, studying abroad, working abroad. So coming back and having to start, a company in a year without really understanding the market, you've been away. So I took this year to kind of really dive in and see what's happening and what can we do together. And it's shifting. It's constantly shifting and growing and adapting. But I'm grateful.
Is your local mentor female?
Male.
But it was, we were talking about Maya Mozani prior to recording. We've always talked about this, Lucian. We leave so much great stuff on the cutting room floor because it's before we start to record. But she again was a guest of the 966, and she has her NUS half, the Women's Empowerment Foundation, and so much. And she worked for 29 years at Saudi at Aramco and had a terrific career, and is now doing this. But her point and her focus has always been on mentorship with women, young women, because she didn't feel like she had that. And it sounds like you're having different opportunities, that you are having these opportunities to be mentored and learn from mentors.
Yeah, throughout the process, I've had mentors. So in the last year, I had so many different ones, joining different programs. And with every program, you have, yes, the the program itself, the curriculum, but there's a mentor there to support you and guide you, because it has to be personal to kind of tailor the journey for you, for your needs, for who you are as well. So that was really important. And it doesn't matter if they're a female or a male. It's more about, do you align? And I think that's what a mentor is for. Do you align? Do you share a vision? Do you understand each other? How can you support each other? It's not only a mentor supporting a mentee. It's sometimes even you bring a fresh perspective into what they do, and you just like move forward. So that's how I see mentorship here today.
So let's talk about what you were doing all last year, starting your company. Can you tell us about your company?
Yeah, so it's called Sangha, Estidama Hub. Sangha means community in Sanskrit, and Estidama is the Arabic word for sustainability. The concept started when I was in Paris, working at UNESCO for 2 years. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden, you're forced to kind of be quarantined or trapped with yourself, with your thoughts, with your emotions, with your whole life, and you're just reflecting upon it. But then I realized that with all these things that we're living today, the state of the world today, why are we living what we're living today? What caused this? It's everything happens for a reason, and there was like an influence for it to kind of manifest in this way today. And I think just this reflection process of going inward, you get to realize that the state of the world is nothing but a reflection of the state of the citizens of the world. If you really want to treat something and heal something, you're not going to go to the symptom and give it medicine and say, shh. No, you're just putting it to sleep. It's still there. It's numbing. And that's not healthy. You go to the core issue and you heal that. You listen to that. You allow it. You give it time to tell you why it is the way it is, and accept it. Accept our mistakes. Accept that we tried, but we failed sometimes. So, and heal that core. And the core is, to me, is us people. So we created this world, and we've done an amazing job, and it's all so new to us. We've never done this before, and we're trying to explore all the options and navigate our world. But how can we guarantee that as new generations come and grow and become leaders, they shape better systems that are fit for the human spirit? And if they're fit for the human spirit, I mean, it's healthy. It's the spirit itself that we don't really usually talk about. What does it truly mean to be human? So we continue to shape systems that are not fit for humans, nor do the planet, because nature as a whole, because we're part of nature too, and we tend to forget that there's a disconnect. So I think these are the small things that we usually don't look at, but they are part of the problem. They're part of why we live in such world. But they're ignored because they seem so simple. Like, no, the problem is so big. The solution must be a new technology that we should create to kind of deal with this. And sometimes yes, and sometimes no. It could be even simpler by ensuring that this human being is well enough that when they think of ideas, they consider themselves, the well-being of people and the planet. So you guarantee that even when we think for solutions, we're thinking of sustainable, healthy, well solutions. How are we meant to come up with new solutions for the issues we're facing when maybe we are not in the best state and mindset to come up with these solutions? So I created a program to make sure that we can praise well individuals that are active green citizens as well. And we call it Flourish Program.
And I think that the term that I thought was interesting in your mission, it was establishing or promoting a well-being economy.
Yeah.
The broader picture. So how is it coming along? Are you getting a good reception? Do you have support?
Yeah, there's a lot of support. There's a lot of excitement, yes. However, because I've created my product is a program. I need to deliver this program to the youth. But for you to sell something, there should be a need, right? But the need is not coming from a market. The need is coming from us decision makers or policy makers and researchers together saying, we need to change things. Society is not thinking that we need to change things. There's still, the awareness is not fully there. So
That's right.
how can I trigger that need? How can I raise awareness? So I'm trying to do that at the moment, to focus on raising awareness, but I don't have to do it myself, right? So now I'm navigating what other entities align or would like to start investing in awareness raising, advocacy, and circularity, because it's all intertwined, right? Because if you're saying well-being economy is an economic system that puts people and the planet in the center of decision making. For governments, when they think, for industries, for individuals, we all kind of think of the people and the planet and then decide and make your decision. So circularity is also a mean on achieving well-being economy. So
Right.
as a manufacturer, as a producer, that's how you think of the people and the planet. This is the economic system that you could put into play. So how can we create, so for public, I want to insert the education system, the mindset, the perspective, the skills. So how you communicate with just society as a whole, how can you guarantee you have a healthy society that could add value in a way, in a level that we haven't received in the past? You have this vision, a global one and a local one, but how can we guarantee as we achieve this vision, we have conscious beings that, you know, could contribute in a way that we've never seen before? Let's make it exciting in a way to kind of achieve this and fulfill it.
Lucian, I'm struck again by the young Saudi professionals we've spoken with on the 966, and we look here at Raghad, and you know, you've got your job, PepsiCo, and you're doing things you love there because, you know, SDG related. You're involved with Y20, which is a global initiative and a global format, global platform, and you've also started your own foundation or company. When you look around at your cohort group, your demographic youth, and not just women, but let's say in your age demographic, and you consider how you look at the world, and you're talking here about circular economy, well-being economy, how you look at the world, are you alone, or a lot of other young Saudis see it in a similar fashion?
This is a very tricky question, Richard. I have to be very careful as I answer because I don't want to be biased. At the end,
well, and I don't want to catch you up in anything. That was a sincere question. I'm really interested.
No, of course, I get it, and I say it because it's a really tricky question for me too. Because here's the thing: you'll understand as I speak. So it is very natural that as a human being, you try to kind of create a community, right? You need a sense of belonging. So if you're asking me when I look around, what do I see? I really worked hard to make sure that the people I pick around me share that.
Right. So you have a self-selected community.
I do. I make very sure. I'm very careful. You know, I need that support system. You know, we think together, we support each other in so many different ways. They're artists, they're into culture, we do different things. The way we participate, the means, the tools, the way we get things done, very different paths. But at the end, when we're sitting together as friends, we see how we you know, why we're together. It's not what we do, it's more of this shared vision and perspective and mindset and consciousness. So yes, when I look around me, I see that a lot, and I'm very happy that I could see that around, you know, here in Saudi as I moved, because that was one of the things I was worried to kind of, will I have this community here? But I'm very surprised that yes, it exists, and I understand why. A lot of us were sent abroad on scholarships. We've, you know, going abroad and living other cultures really does something. It reshapes you. It allows you to see things differently, and the amount of knowledge, the skills, and the culture we've attained, and now the resources are attracting us back to our home country to kind of, the opportunities is telling us, yes, come and act. Please, you know, it's like your playground, and we're so excited to play. There's a lot of excitement to kind of create and innovate, and there's the support system that allows you to do so, not only in resources, but they believe. There's a belief for someone in authority and decision-making level looks at you and they believe that you can do it, to empower you, to invest in you. Of course, I'm going to see it all around me in my circle, and I'm tapping. So when I went to the SYS conference, I love talking to the to the audience. The audience was amazing. And that's not my circle, right? But it became my circle. There's this will and curiosity and hunger to kind of just like absorb and learn, and people are asking questions. I love hearing people asking questions. I used to crave to hear people around me in this community asking questions. So the fact that people are asking questions and they want to learn and get involved is hopeful.
And that was a wonderful response to a tricky question.
Yeah.
That was really nice. Lucian, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, can I ask you a little bit about this scholarship program? Just go back a little bit. So you studied in England for both your bachelor's and master's. Can you tell us about, I guess, how you got the scholarship, how you decided on England? Tell us about that journey.
So here's the thing. Remember when we were talking about women empowerment, and I told you women were ready from a long, before Vision 2030, because during King Abdullah's time, the scholarship were open. And that's when I got my scholarship, and even my siblings. So a lot of us went abroad and studied abroad. So it was more like my dad did his master's abroad, and then all my siblings kind of went to study abroad. So it was my turn to kind of go and study abroad as well, in a way. And I made sure that my dad made a promise this would be my path. I really wanted to kind of go and explore. So that was there. But then for me to get the scholarship, I had to get a really high GPA. So I set a whole plan, an agenda of how can I make sure that Raghad is going to go and study abroad. And I was so frustrated. Back in the time I was a teenager, I was so frustrated. Ya Allah, I was so frustrated at everything. I was complaining all the time until I had enough of myself. And I promised myself, you're not going to complain until you do something about it. Enough complaining. Do something. Why don't they do this? Why don't they change this? Why this is the way it is? But participate, do something, change it. And it just clicked to me, change it, do something about it. So I went through an agency that helps you apply to universities abroad. And we were talking and everything. So what do you want to study? I wanted to study politics. And, that's what I wanted, or philosophy or something. Because I wanted to change the education system, because I did not agree with the fact that I had to pick one thing and study for and be an expert in. I felt like I was so much bigger to just pick one thing, and all the inspirational figures we've learned about, it's so many different things, and now you're asking me to just pick one thing. That really upset me as a teenager. Like, I want to do more. So I decided that in order for me to change, maybe I need to understand the system first. So politics, understand the system, makes sense. And I wanted to pursue that. But then the agency told me, you know what, just pick entrepreneurship. You can still change things, and this, you will have a future, and it's much more stable, and you come back, you get a job. So I was like, okay, fine. I applied. I wanted to study in the US, but I'm telling you the whole story.
That's what we want.
But there's a point there. There's a reason why. So there's a message there. Wait and see. So my father was reluctant. He was so scared that I would go abroad alone and all of that. So he said, let's compromise. You're going to study abroad, but go to the UK. It's closer, so I can come much faster than going to the US. I agreed. So that's how I kind of went to the UK. So I did my undergrad in Southampton. But in my foundation year, I had to write a short dissertation. And all the topics I picked were philosophical and political. So my supervisor back then told me, Raghad, why did you apply? Is that what you want to do? Entrepreneurship? I was like, not really. I want to do politics, so you can change. So I did. And I went through it, I graduated, and I did my master's in London, King's College, in public policy. So I thought, okay, I understand how the system works, but now how can I change it? Public policy, let's figure it out. But at the same time, if I'm being completely honest with you, I was buying myself time. I knew that I still wanted to kind of live abroad. I need to see more here. I still haven't had enough from this experience being abroad, and I wanted to work abroad. I wanted to get experience there. But I've quickly understood that I need to be so unique for them to recruit me and not someone who's, local. So I made sure to kind of get almost 3 jobs and doing my master's. We're gonna do this, CV. So I really worked on it a lot, and I understood what kind of experiences were needed, and I worked really hard. I tried my best. And as soon as I finished, and summer was there, and I was just like, am I gonna go back? Am I not? I received this. My friend sent me a broadcast on WhatsApp. The Amisk Foundation has this program and sending the youth to UNESCO for an internship or something. So I applied and I got accepted, and all of a sudden I find myself there. But it reminds me of that moment when I was told I was applying for, what major would I pick? And they told me that you have no future in politics in Saudi. Just pick social enterprise. You can still do good. But there's a reason why you have this calling and desire, because as soon as I finished my master's, they were looking for youth to represent the kingdom, and who actually studied that. They majored in that. So really, don't pick your choices today based on just what opportunities are available in front of you today, but there's actually time until you can, for things to change, predict. There's ways to look forward. There's every single person can contribute and look forward in a specific way. So did I answer your question? I just like
that was awesome. I think Raghad's mantra should be, I applied and I got accepted. I mean, this has been awesome, and extraordinary. I mean, this has been really a lot of fun, and I think we learned, and our listeners, I hope, and viewers should have learned a lot about you, and it's exciting. And I'm excited for you, not only for the PepsiCo, not only for the Y20 or your company, but my goodness, you're bringing so much dynamism and thinking and just awareness to Saudi Arabia and the world. I'm really impressed.
Raghad Fathaddin, communications analyst for PepsiCo based in Riyadh, entrepreneur, founder of Sangha Estidama Hub. Raghad, thank you so much for your time. This was such a great discussion. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. We'll do it again. I want to hear how your visit to Indonesia goes, and how they, that your Y20 recommendations, how they go, and what's next for you. Because like I said, I'm quite certain you will apply and be accepted.
Yes, for sure.